All right, thank you for tuning in to Chomping at the Bit. This is episode 11. And on this episode, we're going to take a look at the conference finals in the NBA. We're going to kind of take a look at each series, see kind of what's going on. Because I've noticed some interesting trends, and I found myself asking some interesting questions with each series. So I think we'll get into some of that on this episode. And we're going to start off in the East, where the Heat are leading the Celtics 3-2. They actually just played Game 5, where Celtics were up against facing elimination. So they had to be the desperate team, and they came out. They struggled in the first half. So going into halftime, they were down 6. And they came out in the second half. They showed a lot of fight, as they could have folded it up, looked to go home, as they been in the bubble for a while now. But they came out second half, had a great third quarter where they scored 41 points, and then rode that into the fourth quarter to get the big win in Game 5 to now force Game 6 Sunday afternoon, I believe. Or Sunday night, I think. Yeah, Sunday night. But the interesting thing with the series has been both teams, for certain stretches, have played in such a way where you think that they're completely dominant in the series. Now, the first 2 games, Celtics had big leads, couldn't hold them, lost them late. Miami ended up winning. Then it became the Celtics kind of getting a lead. Miami made a little run, but the Celtics finally got over the hump and won their first game. And then it turned into Celtics having the lead again, Miami coming back. That's how they built a 3-1 lead. And then tonight it was Celtics struggled early. Miami looked like they were going to run away with it and finish off the Celtics. Battle back, take over in the second half. But what's kind of stood out to me is, by watching both teams play, it kind of seems like this is where the Eastern Conference may be won between these two teams over the next few years. At least that's how it seems to me. The Heat and Celtics are both well-coached teams. They both pretty much have their identity on offense. Both teams can be pretty inconsistent at times, but that's how a lot of teams are in the NBA right now. But both teams, they make their mark defensively. So when both teams are going well, their defense will dictate their offense. Because both teams like to get easy baskets, and the only way you can do that is you have to get steals or force turnovers however you can. Whether it's getting the passing lane, deflecting the pass, meeting the guy at the rim, getting a big block, get out in transition. Both teams have athletic wings that can hurt you at the rim, or in transition, suck the defense into the lane and leave 3-point shooters on the outside. I know in the beginning of the series, I thought that if Miami could win the series, then you might have to start looking at Jimmy Butler as a, top 25, top 20 player in the game today, or wherever you want to put him. But I gotta say, from watching the first 5 games in the series, the player that's impressed me the most on Miami has been Tyler Hero. Now, I'd heard a lot about Duncan Robinson, who's their other 3-point shooter, but Tyler Hero does more than shoot the three. I mean, he'll rebound. He's definitely more athletic than Duncan Robinson is. Duncan Robinson is your typical spot-up three-point shooter with a quick release. So if you don't pay attention to him, yeah, he can go on a run and drop like 15 and a half and then drop like 25 in a game on you. And he'll hit, back-breaking threes. But the interesting thing with Hero is, like, he's only 20 years old. So I believe he's the youngest player in the playoffs right now. But when you look at Tyler Hero, he has an interesting connection to both teams. Yes, he's on the Heat right now. But if you actually go back to the draft, the Celtics were targeting Tyler Hero. Pat Riley actually took him the pick before the Celtics. So there's that little twist to this matchup where, Tyler Hero's kind of making somewhat of a name for himself in this series, and it's making you wonder how he would have looked if the Celtics had picked him up. I mean, of course, you can't fully play that out because it didn't happen, and you don't know. Like, you put Hero on the Celtics, of course that means they don't draft, Romeo Langford or anything, but would he be playing the same amount of minutes that he is on the Heat? Who knows? But it's just interesting to see that the guy who I thought might make the biggest jump in terms of standing in the NBA, Jimmy Butler, he's kind of looked like the player that I already assumed he was. He's a guy that he's not Jimmy Butler, of course I'm talking about here. He's not the best shooter, which I never thought he was. He's a reluctant three-point shooter, although he seems to only take them in the second half. Earlier in the game, he doesn't look for three-point shots unless, late in the shot clock, and he absolutely has to take one. But yeah, the one thing that Butler does well is, he's a great on-ball defender as he defends physically. And I don't mean like, clutching, grabbing, and all that, but he does like to get a body on a body and keep you out of the lane, keep you from going where you want to go. But offensively, the one thing that he does do well offensively is he looks to get to the rim, and then he uses his strength to finish at the rim. I will say he's definitely an above average finisher. But, in terms of jump shooting, yeah, he's wildly inconsistent. A lot of times when he takes jump shots, it doesn't even look like he's confident in it going in. So yeah, Tyler Hero has been the guy from the Heat who's impressed me the most. And then Bam Adebayo as well is definitely making a name for himself as well. Most people tell you Joel Embiid is the best center in the East. I don't agree with that. Well, Embiid is talented, but if you took Joel Embiid and you put the effort that Adebayo puts into it, then yeah, Embiid would be the most dominant center in the league. But it's just that there's those times where Embiid kind of, lays off the gas, drifts to the perimeter too much, and then he plays right into the other team's hands because that's where they want him to stay. But Adebayo, from the minute the ball's tipped, he knows himself. He doesn't take shots away out of his range. He plays around the paint, more specifically like at the rim. That's what he does. So if he's not going to take the shot, you better believe he's crashing the boards. And, he gets up high enough where, for the most part, he can usually get his hand on a lot of rebounds, or if not, he'll tip them out. And then that's where Miami can kill you. Because if you send 3-4 guys to the front of the rim to get a rebound, but Adebayo either gets it or tips it back out, now you're playing scramble mode, and that's where Hero, Robinson, or even Dragic can beat you from perimeter. But yeah, it's just been interesting seeing Tyler Hero on this stage of the Eastern Conference Finals, and it looks like he doesn't have a lot of fear in his game. He'll take his shots, miss. He's confident with it. And for, a rookie, he's ahead of the game at that point. So I did touch on kind of the outlook of the East going forward. It seems like Heat Celtics could be a good little rivalry going forward. So with that rivalry, it kind of depends on what other teams do, in the conference, because right now you have Milwaukee, who, if they bring most of their core back, Giannis continues to develop, they'll look at being the top in the East. But yeah, Heat, Celtics should definitely be there for the next at least 3-4 years. I feel like when you're looking at the future, the furthest you can go is 3 to 4 years, because after that, rosters usually change, here and there, that at that point you're looking at a different outlook for the next 3-4 years. So once the season's done, 3-4 years after that, you gotta expect Heat, Celtics, Bucks. Raptors, I'm not sure, because they have some free agency issues, and not really sure what kind of team they're gonna bring back next year. So now, on the other side, in the West, we have the Lakers with a 3-1 lead over Denver. And 3 LA wins. LA has been pretty much the dominant team. Denver did, finally get their win in the Game 4. They, like the Celtics, are a team brink of elimination. Actually, correct that. They got their win in Game 3. Lakers actually won Game 4. So they head into Game 5, in an elimination game. So can Denver do what the Celtics just did? Take Game 5, kind of build some momentum going into 6. Because 6 then becomes obviously the most important game in each series, because the team that's up 3-2, it's another chance for them to close it out. But that team that was down 3-1, you take Game 5, you get your couple of days, your day rest, and then play the following day. If you're able to take Game 6, now you have momentum on your side. And in any sport, you get to a Game 7, all bets are off. Anything can happen at that point. So Celtics and the Nuggets, that's the mode that they're in right now. Just get it to a Game 7. But you have to take each game as its own entity, because if you get into Game 5, but you're already looking towards Game 6, you'll end up losing Game 5 and you're going home anyway. So you got to take Game 5, then you take Game 6 for what it is, then you get to 7. So what exactly can Denver do to get Game 5 and then start to maybe put some doubt in some players' minds on the Lakers that, is Denver doing this again? because the first two series they were down 3-1, found a way to come back and win each one. So you know that Denver is not going to come out in Game 5 and be tentative or anything like that. Like I said, they've already done this twice. So for them, it's like, hey, we're down, but we know what we need to do. I think the biggest thing for them is, like, they know they have Jamal Murray. Murray has shown when he's in his groove, the Lakers don't have anybody that can really slow him down. Then they have Jokic, who, I guess the troubling trend with him is, it seems like he plays his best in the first half and kind of into the third quarter. But the past couple of games, fourth quarter, he hasn't really done much of anything in terms of production. So Denver is going to have to find a way to, whether it's get him an extra little stint of rest somewhere in there, or maybe play someone else alongside him on the front court so he doesn't solely have to take AD for most of the night. But they got to figure out a way to get him to still be productive come the fourth quarter, because they can't expect Jamal Murray to be the only like serious option on offense. Not saying they don't have other guys, because you know they have Monte Morris, who's giving them like 12, 15 points a game, which is good because he's, you know, a guy off the bench. That's pretty much what you can expect or ask of guys that come off the bench. Just knock down some open shots when you can. If you can get to the rim, get to the foul line a couple of times, fine. Just have some type of impact when you come into the game. But yeah. But if you don't get Jokic going, I mean, you can bring anybody in off the bench. But, you know, Jokic runs the offense a lot, as he's a skilled playmaker for the center position. And then defensively, he's not the most athletic guy, but you can tell that he definitely does put in the effort defensively. And I mean, that's the most you can ask of him. So the way that I'm looking at this series, so for Denver to take Game 5, I won't even talk about 6 and 7. Just worry about Game 5. They have to make sure that, you know, Murray does get room to operate, because Murray, for the most part, can get somewhat into the lane, but you have to have the perimeter shooting, because there will be a certain point in the game where Murray will start to get into the paint and he'll start facing double teams or a guy off the wing closing in on him, and that's where Michael Porter or Monte Morris or even Jokic, because that is Jokic's biggest weapon on offense, is the fact that he can draw Anthony Davis away from the rim, because he's a three-point shooting threat and you have to pay attention to him. So, you know, I say all that to say Denver is going to have to kind of spread the Lakers defense out. That way Murray can get to the rim when he breaks down his guy and gets into the paint. Or if they try to pack the paint on him, then, you know, you get like a little ball screen, and then, you know, when you have the big man roll off the pick, hopefully Murray gets enough space to then pull up from three or find a cutter like Paul Millsap or with Miles Plumlee. Like I said before, there's like 3 Plumlee brothers. I believe Denver has Miles Plumlee. No, Mason Plumlee, yes. But because Denver does have weapons. Denver is the younger team. Denver does like to get out and run. So that kind of takes me to what the Lakers have to do to close out this series is take care of the ball, get another playoff Rondo performance. With that, playoff Rondo is a triple-double threat. So they definitely need that because Rondo playmaking takes the ball out of LeBron's hand. That way, LeBron is free to attack the rim when the ball swings to him, or Rondo gets in the paint because he, like Murray, can get to the paint somewhat easily, except for Rondo usually gets into the paint to kick out, whereas Murray can get into the paint and kick out or continue to the rim or pull up with a little runner. And the Lakers also have the question mark in Anthony Davis because last game he came down awkwardly on his ankle, rolled it. Now there's questions as to whether he'll play Game 5. So if he does play, then I believe Denver has to go at him early to see how mobile he is. You got to test it out to see if he still can move laterally. And with that moving laterally, does he trust himself to move laterally and not feel any pain in his ankle? If AD is out, you'll most likely get, they'll probably use Dwight Howard a little more, as Dwight Howard apparently, in this series at least, has taken over the backup big man minutes from McGee. Because I believe I haven't seen McGee in a game in at least 4 games, I feel like. If any in this series. I remember him in the last series against the Rockets, but I don't really remember seeing him that much against Denver. But either way, if it is Howard, then Howard does have a tendency to get into foul trouble quickly, as he tends to foul in clusters, whether it's reaching on the defensive end, then he'll come down on the offensive end, get an offensive foul, and go back on defense. He might get cheap reach-in foul, and then he's kind of out of the game for the half. So that's, I guess, my key for Denver. 80's out there, go at him on defense, test him out. If he's not in there, try to, I guess, force Howard to do what he normally does and get into foul trouble. So, of course, I don't feel like either series is over. Because the Celtics did win Game 5. And now the Heat players are probably thinking, was Game 5 the one to eliminate the Celtics? Because now in Game 6, the Celtics are going to come out, at least they should. Not to say that they won't come out flat again, but they should be coming out in Game 6 with a lot of momentum, energy, because they know all I gotta do is get 6. And as Kemba Walker said at the end of the game, all we want is a chance. And they have that chance right now. So Denver has to take that kind of mentality into Game 5. Just give us a chance. So another thing I've noticed with that series is, like, coming into this year, everybody was looking at the new look Lakers, the new super team Clippers, the Harden Westbrook Rockets, or the once Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, plus whoever they get with their high draft pick, or whether they trade it for an established player, Golden State Warriors team. Then you have Portland that, every year analysts look at as a threat in the West. It kind of seems like Denver was overlooked a little bit for the simple fact that their weapons are on the younger side. But from watching them against the Jazz in the first round, Clippers second round, now the Lakers, could Denver be actually the team that takes over the mantle in the West once, I guess, the LeBron AD partnership with the Lakers ends, whether that's LeBron retiring or AD opting out, moving somewhere else, possibly to the Bulls. That was a rumor before that he would go back home, as he's a Chicago kid, play for the Bulls. Which, if you look at it, could be more of an option now, as they do have Billy Donovan as a new head coach. So maybe that's the type of coach that he may be interested in playing for. I don't know. But whenever, because, with the Lakers up right now, it looks like the Lakers will be in the finals. They will be the team at the mountaintop. So it'll be about who will challenge them to take them off their throne. And I just feel like with Denver, you have Jamal Murray, who's, turned a lot of heads this postseason and has put his name strongly in the conversation of being the best point guard in the league, possibly. If not the best point guard, then at least, it's a top 5 point guard in the league. Why not? He's shown that he's got the ability to break down defenses. He'll burn you from the outside when he's on his game. And when he gets to the rim, he can make difficult shots at the rim. He's a good free throw shooter. So he can beat you from every level on offense. The rim, mid-range, 3. And he'll take tough shots late in the game. And for at least the past month or so in the bubble in the playoffs, he's made a lot of them. So you got to give him that. And then you have Jokic, another young guy who's, still coming into his own. As I said before, he's not the most athletic guy, but that's not to say he can't transform his body and get more athletic. Which, if he ever does get more athletic or, more in shape or whatever, that could be a scary thing for the Western Conference. Because let's say, like I said, AD were to leave, then who's that big man that could really slow Jokic down? I mean, you do have Gobert in Utah, but Jokic can still do his thing against Gobert. Because Gobert isn't used to guarding a guy like Jokic on the perimeter. That he's out of his comfort zone out there. So yeah, and Denver has a lot of guys who, they're like 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", long arms, athletic, but can also shoot from the outside, which is clearly where the NBA is going, where it's like a 6'7" to 6'9" league of athletic wings or big men, long arm, running the floor, inside, outside, Denver has those pieces. And, they should continue to improve. Hopefully the front office makes the right moves on whether to keep a certain free agent, bring in a new free agent, to kind of sculpt the team around Murray, Jokic, and Michael Porter. If there's anything you learn from this postseason, as well as that, Michael Porter was definitely worth taking the chance on in that draft. He was a guy who came into the league as a top prospect, but when he was at Missouri, I believe, he had pretty significant back injury, which kind of led him sliding down the draft board to the point where Denver kind of just took him, I want to say in the late teens, early 20s of the first round. And now that it seems like he is healthy, he's showing the league that he's a guy who's versatile on offense. Still has deficiencies defensively, as he will time to time have lapses where it seems like he's not really engaged on defense. So he may go for a rebound softly, then it gets knocked out of his hand, or he just completely loses sight of his man and just is staring at where the basketball is. His guy back cuts him, wide open layup. So if he can just raise his defensive level and then continue to be consistent offensively, of course there's room to grow, with his shot selection. And yeah, pretty much shot selection is his worst enemy right now. So if he can fix that, pick up defensive intensity, there you go. Porter becomes a guy who, athletic wing, can play, just get up to like average defense. Right there, he becomes a significant piece for Denver's future. But that's kind of what I mainly wanted to talk about the NBA right now. Hope you are tuning into the playoffs, because this whole bubble experience has made the playoffs seem a little different. Not bad or anything, in a good way, as once you taken the crowd noise out of these games, you're seeing a lot of teams that are just, I don't know how to explain it. The game just looks different watching it on TV now. You have benches that are, totally into the game every minute, as they're the ones that are creating the atmosphere for these games. So with that, certain players are getting hyped up, get on the court, they're doing their thing. But then once you come off the court, you're sitting there, and now you're hyping yourself back up to get back in the game to then do your thing. So it's just created a different atmosphere. And so with that, it's going to be interesting to see where both of these series go from this point, as both series are at a turning point right now. So, like I said, with the East, with the Celtics winning the last game, can they come out, do it again, force a Game 7, which there's nothing better than a playoff Game 7, especially in the conference finals, with a chance to go to the finals. And then, can Denver possibly do it for a third time and get down 3-1 and extend a series to Game 7? We'll definitely see in the coming days what's going to happen here. But, well, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with the NBA. Looking forward. The next episode, I will I'll get into week 3. Yes, week 3 of the NFL. Take a look at the weekend slate of the games. Do like last week. Give you the games that I'm interested to watch. And then give you my picks. You know, first 2 weeks, struggled a little bit with the picks. But it's week 3 now. Another chance for me to turn it around and try to build some momentum. So definitely look forward to that. Thank you for tuning in. If you are new, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find Chompin at the Bit podcast on any provider, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Spreaker, wherever you listen to podcasts, I am on there. So definitely give the show a like, follow, subscribe, drop a comment on any topics you want me to talk about, or if you want to drop your opinion on anything that I talked about in this episode. And once again, if you're new, definitely go back and listen to the previous 10 episodes. And for those of you who are returning, have listened to a few episodes already, definitely appreciate it. You know, do the same thing. Like, follow, subscribe. You know, let somebody else know about it. Let's continue to make this, you know, a bigger, better thing. And with that, it's a good place to stop with this episode. Thanks for tuning in, of course, and be safe. I'll catch you in the next episode. All right.